Welcome, everybody, to episode 351 of WordPress Weekly for Wednesday, April 10th, 2019. I'm your host, Jeff Chandler, joined by Mr. John James Jacoby, where I understand he's in the middle of an April blizzard.
April blizzard. It's coming the wrong direction. It's like coming from the northeast. It shouldn't be doing that. So
April snow showers bring May flowers or flooding. Yeah. I don't know.
We're supposed to get a few inches. Hopefully it doesn't stick around, though. And then it's coming for you. You're next.
No, actually, we're going to get rain. We're going to be on the warm side of it. So
we just had 70 degrees the other day. It sucks right now.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Now, the sad thing about the 70-degree day is we took Smokey out because we had cabin fever. My wife and I did. He had cabin fever. We went out for the whole day. And the next day, I discovered something on his neck, and I thought it was just an injury because he plays with the cat, and I thought maybe the cat scratched him. But then yesterday, I was looking at the bump and discovered it was a tick. And the tick had been on Smokey's neck for the past 24, 48 hours. So we did a bit of a freak out, and we took him to the vet, and they removed most of the tick. Some of it is lodged into his neck. So we feel really bad as pet parents, dog parents. We feel really stupid because we don't give him the flea and tick medication throughout the winter months because we don't take him outside. We figure, why pay for that?
Right.
And he was scheduled to get a grooming, so we didn't get him groomed. We didn't get him his medication before we took him outside. So we feel really, really bad and stupid as pet parents.
That's stupid. You learned a lesson.
Taking it a bit hard, but
that's okay. Don't beat yourself up over it. It's like not paying for it during the winter months makes sense, because why would you want to apply chemicals or things like that to your pets when you don't have to? And then shout out to Justin Tadlock who chimed in, because he's just like, oh yeah, it's just a tick. Just take some tweezers to it and take it off. And I'm kind of in the same boat.
Which I've done before. I've done that with a comb before, but I've never. Yeah. This thing was lodged in there, and it was in there for a while, and I didn't want to screw anything up. I wanted to have it removed. And the vet didn't charge me for it, which is cool. They deal with these things all the time. And so what we're going to end up having to do is he's already scheduled for Monday for his grooming, and they'll have to give him some antibiotics, and then within a few months to do blood work tests to see if he's got symptoms of Lyme disease, which is treatable. Right. I don't think it's curable, but it's treatable.
Yep. And so ticks are creepy, crawly little things. They gross me out.
You don't even have to walk in the grass. They can just jump onto your dog. And we have so many white-tailed deer here. Yeah, it's tick heaven here in Ohio and in the Northeast. Let's see. And outside of Smoky news, geez, I guess we ought to get into some WordPress.
Probably should talk about WordPress. It's probably
it is WordPress Weekly, not Smokey Has Ticks Weekly, which thank God he doesn't. That would be terrible. I do want to cover a couple. We did get some feedback from last week's episode where we mainly talked about Jetpack's feature hints and Jetpack manipulating the search results to kind of show a module that may do something similar or that you already have installed. And I'll start off with Nick, who says that it was another excellent episode. He says that until now, very few objected to the decisions not options slogan that Automatic uses. Why are some now objecting to the Jetpacks and WooCommerce plugin suggestions? As JJJ indicated a few episodes back, having others make some decisions for you might be helpful and beneficial and probably time-saving for some. He says he's paraphrasing here, but as Nick said before, he finds decisions not options very offensive. It is nothing short of software communism.
Oof.
That said, Automatic really controls the entire show, and it is in their right to do anything they want, but at least they have to be brave and tell the truth instead of hiding behind "we" and democratizing publishing and other meaningless phrases and countless lies. There was no democracy the way WordPress 5.0 was developed, even the way the release date was decided. And I know what some people are already thinking, and no, the WordPress governance project is not the answer. If anything, it will divide the community even more, and if successful in forcing themselves to do what they are planning, they will only add bureaucracy to the whole thing, and nothing will get done. Looking forward to next week's episode, which is today.
Yeah. Oof, scathing.
So
there's some nuggets in there that I think other people might agree with too. It's I agree and then disagree, but the scathing review. But
I don't really agree with the fact that it automatic controls the entire show. I don't think that's accurate. I don't think it's even possible. I think it could easily be perceived and it looks
yeah,
that way,
you're
but
right.
I don't think that's really the case.
Well, we've talked about it on the show before. Automatic is an interesting company with an interesting relationship between its CEO and the one of the co-founders of WordPress, and that wearing both hats is not easy. So there's a lot of overlap between what happens in the automatic company and in the WordPress.org community and ecosystem of things. And so it's blurry lines for most people, which has pros and cons.
And Michael McGlinn, he also commented on the show and he says, in my opinion, part of the issue with Jetpack is its UI. They have done a poor job in making the paid features discoverable. They have recognized the lack of conversion of free to paid accounts and have attempted to solve the issue on the backs of the community rather than revamping their own product's UI to do a better job of demonstrating value. The idea of automatic owned products getting a pass is dangerous. Great comments by John on this topic.
Well, hey,
Wow,
thanks.
your fan club is expanding little
A
by
little
little
bit,
every week.
2 steps forward and 2 steps back, I guess. But I appreciate that. And like
Jetpack recently revamped their dashboard. They recently
Mhm.
revamped the UI. I mean, they've tried to make strides into making it easier to manage all the various modules and features that are within the Jetpack plugin. And obviously, I guess they still have some more work to do there.
Mhm.
In fact, speaking of Jetpack, they released Jetpack 7.2.1, which actually removes promotions for paid upgrades from the plugin search. So one of the people that
Good.
took one of the things that people took issue with was that if you had Jetpack installed and you did a plugin search for videos, it would have showed you the first result would have been from Jetpack and would have displayed a pretty much an advert for
Mhm.
video press, and it would have been a green button that says purchase. So if you didn't have it installed, or if your Jetpack plan with WordPress.com, if you didn't have video press, it would look like it's upselling the
Mhm.
service to you, which looks like an advertisement. It does not look like a feature hint
Right.
or a
That is
suggestion.
correct. That is correct.
So what they've done is they have removed all feature suggestions that previously advertised upgrades, which I believe is a step in the right direction.
I think so too.
Jesse Friedman, Jetpack representative, says that they made a mistake and were moving to correct it immediately. Their intention with this feature, with the feature hints, is to help people discover helpful features of Jetpack that you already have right when you need them most. And that they're correcting an error in judgment that resulted in the hint suggesting Jetpack features that actually required an upgrade. Now, in this post by Sarah Gooding, she says that characterizing a mistake as an error in judgment is an admission that rolling out feature suggestions with paid upgrades was a conscious decision.
Kind of seems
Um,
that way, right?
a month later, after it was released, the Jetpack team decided it was a poor choice, which appears to be driven by the community's reaction, but Jetpack has not elaborated on how or why they reached a decision to revert to promotions for paid upgrades. They also said that they like the suggestion by Joost de Valk to enhance plugin suggestions or plugin search in general. So they're trying to work with him on that, and they're hoping that some type of core solution is created. And when that happens, Jetpack will adopt that, and I'm sure many other plugins will adopt it as well. And if you still don't want to see any feature suggestions by Jetpack at all, you can use a filter. It's jetpack.com _remove _search _hints filter, or you can use the High Jetpack Promotions plugin as an alternative. So it looks like the feature hints will stay there. They've also redid the wording to make sure that it says that this is coming from the Jetpack plugin, and they've removed the upsells to the paid services. But at the core of it, it's still manipulating the search results.
It is still putting itself where I would prefer that it not be, and that the plugin guidelines kind of say it shouldn't be. But this is better than it was 1 point release ago.
And there are people in the comments still suggesting that this is still wrong, that it's sort of opening Pandora's box, and what we're going to see now is other plugins in the directory or elsewhere hijacking the plugin search results page. And I think only time will tell if that actually happens or not.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty bold, but they now's the time to try. Like, it seems to be okay to try this, and so everyone else should try the same thing. I mean, if they were paying attention, they'd be trying.
I'll put you on the spot.
I love it when you do that.
You have a mega plugin. You have a lot of different modules. You've decided that you don't want to go into the one plugin for one feature type of mentality. So you just bundle everything together. What do you do? What UI do you do? What wording? What design? I mean, how do you? And one of the issues here that Carl Hancock brought up that I thought was interesting was that Jetpack is being pre-installed on all these hosting accounts, and with it installed, these customers are getting immediate access to 45 different modules, all these features that Jetpack offers,
right?
And they're going out and searching the plugin directory to try and install these different plugins for features that Jetpack already covers, which I think is really the core of where this feature hint comes into play to try and help those specific users out. So what do you do?
I think the answer is simple, but the work is difficult. Like, for something that is as big as Jetpack, or I mean, frankly, any other type of big monolithic plugin, you really do take over the dashboard, and make it very clear that what they are running is a Jetpack powered WordPress install. Otherwise, you have discovery issues like Jetpack has been running into. You look at other plugins like Gravity Forms that largely put everything underneath one top-level admin menu, or you look at plugins like EDD or WooCommerce that all kind of go and do the same model of having one admin menu. It gets super crowded. You end up with 30 different submenus under there, and then you have the same problem all over again. But something like Jetpack integrates so deeply into many different areas of WordPress. In fact, it kind of tries to offer better versions of a lot of the things that do come with WordPress: media, comments, anti-spam through Akismet, backups. Like, it tries to do everything. And so either it really does need to be invisible, where you don't know that you're running Jetpack, it just happens to be so great that it's doing everything for you, or it needs to be so in your face, all over the place, that it's running a Jetpack powered install, that it needs to be obvious that that's what you're doing. And there are like a million different examples of this out in the real world all over the place. Like, but Automatic kind of has a history of trying to do what feels like the right thing with their software and products, and kind of trying to be in the middle. But I don't think that it being in the middle here does users very, very much good anymore. Like, either you're running Jetpack and that's what your WordPress install is powered by, or you're not. But like the middle ground of trying to play nice, but kind of trying to deeply integrate with some things and other things, doesn't work. I think it leaves everybody dissatisfied from all angles instead of keeping people happy. And so I'm all for Jetpack actually being more pervasive or in your face if it's very obvious that you're using Jetpack to power those things. If you went to your admin area and went to comments and it looked different and it felt different and it was powered by Jetpack in the comments, it could still be the same menu in the same place. It just takes over comments. Fine. Take over the media gallery, or take over the media library. Fine. Like, take over the blocks in Gutenberg because you're offering a ton of just Jetpack specific blocks. Fine. Just completely replace it, gut it, and put something new there.
You're not
But
using WordPress. You're using JetPress.
right, and that
I don't
and
know.
basically, right, like it would be okay if that was how it worked. I think more people would be would be behind what Jetpack is trying to accomplish if Jetpack took that more confident approach. Even though it is more pervasive, it would at least appear like Jetpack is the thing that's running the show instead of trying to dip in be somewhat invisible, but not really, because you can't really do both. Either you're behind the scenes making it better, or you're front and center running the show. The middle ground, it just leaves everybody kind of dissatisfied. I think that's
And in
what I think.
in a somewhat little bit of a related question that doesn't have anything to do with feature suggestions, but I saw somebody on Twitter uh, write something to the effect of that the writings on that they're starting to see the sort of SaaSification of WordPress. And if you look at what Jetpack offers, when you add Jetpack and use many of the modules that it has to enhance WordPress, I mean, it seems like you're a stone's throw away from turning WordPress as
Mhm.
software into software as a service without actually, being hosted somewhere like on WordPress.com. And I've sort of seen the writing on the wall the past couple of years where it seems like more and more we're getting WordPress to a point where it's like you're running software as a service, but
Right.
even though it's still self-hosted. I mean, what do you see from that angle? I mean, how close are we to WordPress just being as a software as a service, even though it's distributed?
I think that we are still really far away from achieving that, like
Yeah.
their nirvana of that goal. Like there are some pieces of software and that like Plex is kind of more like that, where you run your own media server. You have all of your own media, but it is a thing that you can sort of share with other people to share your media library with them. Plex has a plugin ecosystem. Plex has add-ons that let you extend it in different ways. There are people that customize Plex to make it work the way that they want for it to work. Uh, but it is a thing that they have their own cloud services. They have their own TV. They have their own podcasts. They have their own cloud-based things that Plex does provide you if you're willing to upgrade and pay for them. But it feels more baked into the software and very much more natural for something like Plex to provide that. WordPress is so rooted in owning your own content and installing it yourself that trying to sassify anything unfortunately still makes it feel very much like a thing that is disconnected. It feels very clunky. I think there are just too many ways that it falls apart, and we're far from it being smooth. We're just
All
not
right.
there yet.
We're farther away than I thought we were.
Yeah, like we don't really have a plugin that easily allows you to move your entire media gallery to AWS or to some other offloaded remote destination. Like every time you do it, you have to install a plugin, you have to configure it, you have to set it up, you have to make an admin account, you have to get up keys and tokens on
It's
one
been
end or
so
the
long
other.
since I've had to migrate a WordPress account.
Yep.
I wonder if the built-in WordPress importer exporter is still as flunky as ever.
It is. I know Ryan McHugh spent some time trying to make a better version of it.
Some of the
And
UI stuff he showed was just
mhm.
beautiful.
Yep.
It's,
And that's another one of those things that happens is the WordPress importer, as clunky as it is built on a file format that is relatively trusted and that people can safely and easily move their content back and forth with. And so whether it's antiquated or not, whether it's JSON or something new or modern, is kind of irrelevant if it's something that is a standard. Like the outlets that we all have in our homes are different across the world, but it is important to standardize those outlets per country so that you can buy the right hair dryer, you can buy the right adapter to plug things in. Like None of these things in WordPress really truly are standardized well enough, schema.org kind of standards or otherwise, that make it easy for people to tap into the power of a media gallery and make it easy to move those things around, or comments, or user accounts, or authorization, or there just isn't. There isn't none of those things are deeply standardized enough to make it easy to make them portable enough to really truly have good SaaS's 100% really built around them. Like Automatic's the only company uh, really with deep enough pockets to spend the 10 years trying to build a bunch of SaaS offerings around uh, what WordPress kind of already does and maybe doesn't do amazingly well. Other companies that have deep pockets are focusing on hosting or the complete other end of it, and they're coming around the other direction. But it'll take years. It was not a thing that's happening quickly.
In addition to Jetpack's feature suggestions, we also mentioned last week that WooCommerce 3.6 was going to add extension recommendations to their marketplace. That is, recommendations for extensions that they host on their marketplace that's both created by automatic and trusted third-party developers. And that caused quite a ruckus in the GitHub discussion area for this feature, and there was a lot of discussion around the fact of dismissing these notices. Where, as we mentioned last week, somebody joked that if you dismiss something, you don't want it to come back. But the way they have this set up in WooCommerce is that the suggestions you'd only show one suggestion at a time. If a customer dismisses this, they won't see another one for 24 hours. If suggestions are dismissed more than 5 times, no further suggestions are shown in that location for a month. So, I mean, you're not dismissing things. You're pretty much putting them on snooze.
Right.
So there's some discussion around that. People were chiming in. For example, Jamie Madden, who is the founder of WC Vendors Marketplace, says that this is in direct competition to every third-party developer that is not selling on WooCommerce's marketplace. He says that I am one of those. This is advertising for your commercial products, no matter how you try and wrap this. You have an extensions page already, which is more than enough, but advertising your products every 24 hours is going too far. This is completely unacceptable, unquote. There's quite a few people who weighed in on this, and Todd Wilkins participated in the conversation and says that they are listening to feedback on the usefulness, frequency, and ways to improve extension recommendations. As with all things open source, they are subject to change. He says that it is often only when the release candidate comes out that we get certain kinds of feedback. It's an important stage in the development cycle when we want and expect input. With the 3.6 RC1 Live, we have received specific feedback that we can take into consideration and act on. Thanks to the developers, end users, and the plugin review team for all of their help. They have since released WooCommerce 3.6 RC2, and in this version, some of the feedback that they are working on and potentially going to act on is to remove product listing suggestions, add a setting to turn off marketplace suggestions, add an icon to product meta box suggestions, add a link to manage suggestions, and update text explaining opt-out and details of usage tracking. So there you go. Just working on ways to enhance and fix and work with the feedback that they've received for these suggestions.
Yeah, I think my hat goes off to everyone who is really adamantly participating in the GitHub thread and the conversation around all of this, because a release candidate is too late to be testing these features. This is what beta is for. Release candidates mean it is ready to go as it is. And this is something that the WooCommerce team wants to build.
And by the way, Wilkins, you mentioned that he says that the marketplace suggestion feature was developed in the open in the long-running feature branch PR, which was merged to master a month ago. It was also mentioned in the beta 1 release notes and was testable during beta 1 and prior on master.
Right, but who's doing that? So I get it, and beta is where that belongs. Release candidate is not time to pivot this feature back out. Beta is where that belongs. But how many people are really running beta? And even when they are, who's really commenting and leaving feedback? And even if they do, who is listening to the feedback? And all of the comment threads in here, and even the ones in the tavern, kind of prove the point I'm making, which is it doesn't matter how early you participate and you give the feedback that this isn't something that is good. If they just want to build it anyways, then they're just going to build it anyways, regardless of whether or not you liked it in beta or release candidate or otherwise. And then when you look at the amount of additional work that now needs to happen during release candidate, simply to hide the thing that they have built that people don't want, is ridiculous. Like all of the checkboxes and filters and actions and things to take out something that nobody wanted in is like another one of those exhausting conversations that people don't want to have. It's just it's a bad deal. This is there are other ways to do this, particularly more effective and probably gracefully. The way that this is being implemented is
no. See, you have it all wrong. This is one of those things that you didn't know you wanted until it exists, until it was built.
Right, like the automobile. I just wanted a faster horse, Jeff. That's all I wanted, was a faster horse.
Yeah. Once you get to experience it, you're like, yeah, where was this before?
I had air conditioning on my horse. It was open air. It's a convertible. It's open air in my hair.
So I think there's a filter that's been added, or some people have added a custom filter to remove these suggestions, and somebody has already created a plugin that's, I think, is approved and available on the WordPress.org plugin directory, where you can remove WooCommerce Marketplace suggestions. But then if you start reading the comments, and this has come up during Gutenberg development, and this is going to come up time and time again. WooCommerce is an automatic company. They acquired WooThemes and WooCommerce. They're automatic owned, and now it comes across as some of the feedback from these people is that Automatic and Matt Mulligan company are now doing what they can to maximize and get every dollar they can out of the .org ecosystem, which I don't entirely agree with. I think
I disagree with that statement.
Automatic is a business. They're not milking the community. They're not trying to stretch. There are so many things that Automatic could do if that truly was the purpose. That would be a lot more efficient than what they're doing.
Or not even more efficient, just period. Like I agree with that. I disagree with that statement. I agree with you, Jeff, 100%. Like they are not doing everything they can. They are doing some small things, and people don't like it. If they were doing everything they could, they would be doing a whole lot more.
And it would be insanely obvious to everyone what they were doing.
And it would be, a lot of people would be pretty unhappy about it. So these are baby steps. These are very little steps to monetize the footprint that they have, because they are involved in everything, and so they are not monetizing a million other things that they could. But they're doing a little bit, and it's not an easy market to monetize. Anyone that is listening that has tried will know that trying to monetize your plugin, your theme, your product, your service in the WordPress ecosystem is not nearly as simple or easy as it sounds. There's a little bit of timing, there's a little bit of luck, and there is a lot of work that goes into getting that right. And so Automatic just has a very large footprint, a very large circle of influence that they can tap into with all of their offerings and plugins, where they're making little moves and they're making a little bit. But the more moves they make is kind of the rockier it's going to be until it gets fully, deeply done. So we'll see what happens for a couple of years, I guess. But yeah,
and at least with the WooCommerce market, the marketplace, is that if you're a third-party developer and you don't sell extensions on WooCommerce.com, you have every reason and every right to be upset about this. This really takes a jab at your business and your products that you're selling, because now it's prime real estate that you can't be on unless you somehow get approved to be on the WooCommerce marketplace.
Yep. And any one of those marketplaces that has huge traffic or makes or sells a lot of things.
Basically, if you're not in the WooCommerce marketplace, you're at a huge disadvantage.
Yep.
And it's not really it's not really your fault. It's just if you choose not to, or if you have a product that where it doesn't really make sense to be in the WooCommerce marketplace, that's just the way it is. But if you're that developer, that business owner, boy, that's gotta suck.
Like the one person who already has their like turning off promotions, the turning off WooCommerce promotions, like there are apps in the App Store where you have to pay 99 cents to turn ads off. Like someone could have put that plugin in the WooCommerce plugin store. Like if you want to permanently disable WooCommerce ads, pay $100 to turn them off, right? Like if someone could have easily made that as an add-on in the WooCommerce store instead of it being available for free in the plugins repo. And so could you imagine, like if Automatic was really truly trying to get people to pay them, they could have just built that plugin themselves and sold it.
Build in suggestions and then build a commercial extension to turn them off.
Right.
Dude.
Right? I mean, there are lots of different ways where they could have maximized the earning potential on this. And that is something that apps in the App Store have done for 5 years or longer. So, I mean, in Automatic's defense, as much as I don't like the thing that they're building, they could have done it in a way worse way that other people already tolerate in other app stores forever. So, yeah.
Well, I, for one, am happy that they're not doing it that way.
Me too.
Let me tell you. So, brief update on WordPress 5.2 Beta 2. It was released yesterday, April 9th. Thanks to the testing that people have done since Beta 1, nearly 100 tickets have been closed with quite a few fixes added to WordPress 5.2. They've added support for Emoji 12. There's been a brand new WP Body Open template tag and a corresponding WP Body Open action that will let themes and plugins add content right after the body is opened. Superfluous paragraph tags will no longer incorrectly appear in dynamic block content. The site health screens have received several bug fixes, tweaks, and performance improvements. Crash protection no longer interrupts plugin editing, which I thought was probably an interesting bug, whoever came across that. And custom error handlers now load correctly. In addition to all of this, the minimum PHP version that WordPress will require is 5.6.20. I mean, honestly, if you're on a web host that's using these versions of PHP, I guess they want to go out of business because the performance gains from PHP 7 and up, I mean, performance is money. And these hosts should be looking at their bottom line and saying, we should just raise PHP across the board. But a lot of people are cheering because there's finally movement on WordPress actually saying, hey, you got to bump up, the minimum version of PHP that you have. And hopefully these minimum versions go up by the end of the year. So if you're interested to see more details on what's going into WordPress 5.2, definitely keep your eye on the Make WordPress core blog and look out for the dev notes. The dev notes post is always highly detailed and tells you everything you need to know about the new release. And the new release is scheduled for release on April 30th, 5.2.
Tons of dev notes in this release. I mean, these are the highlights in 5.2, but there's so many little things. It's pretty cool. The 5.6 bump to PHP is a big deal. Like, how many times throughout the years have we talked about PHP 4? Moving from 4 to 5, right? I mean, moving from 5 to 7 will be another conversation that we're having a year or two from now. Like, at 5.6, is a significant jump. There are really cool features that are available to everyone. Plugin developers theme, the developers core 1562 is the minimum, so, or 5620, I guess. That's really exciting.
And last week we mentioned the story about Pip Dig. Turns out that Pip Dig, the company, is now under investigation. The hosting company that was hosting Pip Dig, they've actually proactively disabled some of the malicious code that they discovered in the plugin that prevents phoning home and doing some other things. And there's also been some people in the WordPress community, such as Mark Jakewith, who created a plugin called P3 Neutralizer. This will actually prevent the P3 plugin from updating or phoning home. And he's actually sympathized with many of the people, many of the common users and fashion bloggers that are using Pip Diggs themes and plugins, because these people just can't up and leave. They can't just switch things. They have time and investment and money, and that they might not even have the technical means to, or the time at this point, to just switch to a different design. So awesome contribution by Mark Jakewith and some of the other people in the community. There's also been a couple of companies who have reached out to customers saying that if you are using, I believe PipDig had a hosting service where they were hosting customer sites, that they were offering free hosting to the people, the customers affected who are running on PipDig's hosting services. So there's all of that. And
I saw a tweet from Josh Strabel, from one of the Pagely co-founder.
They've actually banned the plugin on their hosts.
They've banned the plugin, and his tweet was something to the effect of that the 2-year free hosting deal that PipDig's provider is giving PipDig's hosting customers is a really super good deal, and that he doesn't know if they would have been able to have met that level of service. I remember Josh tweeted, I think he was super impressed. I forget the name of the hosting company. We should probably know it or link to it in the show notes, but they get two years free hosting, which is like, what an amazing way to settle that up for people that are negatively affected by PipDig. It was a cool move.
And customers have reached out and they're trying to get a refund from PipDig. But as we've seen in tweets from conversations of customers and the owner of PipDig, it looks like if you're past the 3-month period, you don't get any refunds based on it being a digital product, which is pretty standard practice for most themes and plugins, that it's a digital product. And sometimes they don't even offer refunds within a certain amount of time. So there's actually people who are writing posts on how to get a refund from your purchase of PipDig if you've purchased within the last 180 days. So generally that means you request a refund from them. If you don't get it, you escalate it, you call your credit card company, you file a chargeback, you file a complaint with PayPal. I mean, there's many different means there. But it's standard practice that after 3 months or even less, that you don't get any refund whatsoever because it's a digital product.
Yeah, the folks at PipDig, I mean, to talk of, or to think of the other side of this, they must be hurting right now. They are probably scrambling because, like, chargebacks are expensive.
It's like a digital company's worst enemy.
It really truly is. And so if they are a small
and customers
company,
can file them even if you've done nothing wrong.
That's right. And so if PipDig is a small company of 4 employees and they're not hugely profitable, then people getting or asking for their money back beyond their 90 days or doing chargebacks, like that kind of bankrupts the company real quickly. Like, they just don't have that much cash on hand to even be able to process returns like that. Like, regardless of like the bad they did, which, okay. And the whole scandal is scandalous. But the 4 people that are trying to recuperate from a calamity of errors they're not only are they having a bad time in the social medias, they're probably having a bad time in the bank account right now too. So real world repercussions for real world mistakes kind of happening in public. So a
And I
lot
had
of
asked
bad
on
things.
I had asked on Twitter, says, after everything that's been written about Pip Dig, I don't understand how this company's still in business. And then somebody reminded me that, hey, not everybody, even including especially their customers, probably keep an eye on news outlets,
That's right.
and a lot of people don't even understand the technical garble that's in the post that's talking about the bad things or the malicious things that could be used maliciously that were discovered within the plugin.
Right. I mean,
So
if LiftMaster was involved in some kind of weird third party thing, or their app was doing something it shouldn't have been, the world doesn't just go and replace all of their garage door openers. Like, these are tools, these are utilities that people have installed, and they trust them to do what they're supposed to do. And so, as long as they keep doing those things, most people are not going to care so much or connect the dots until this is something that is like on the news for everyone to draw attention to. Like, it's I get it. There are going to be a lot of people that sit with this and are totally fine.
but unfortunately for Pip Dig, or fortunately, I don't know, depending on how you look at it, when you type a search for them in Google, you're going to find many articles about the security issues with Pip Dig, and that's something I don't know if they'll ever be able to come back from.
That's right. It did bubble up very fast, and
I mean, the news was on like certain daily news sites and sites that typically you wouldn't see WordPress news stuff on, and when it spreads beyond the WordPress bubble out to those sites, that's how you know it's, oh boy. Not good. In acquisition news, GoDaddy has acquired Themebeans, CoBlocks, Block Gallery, and Block Unit Test from Rich Tabor. He's joining GoDaddy as a senior product manager of WordPress experience, and he's going to lead a team dedicated to understanding users' needs and expanding the company's Gutenberg-related products. Now, Tabor's fellow CoBlocks founders, Jeffrey Carendang and Alex Denning, will not be joining GoDaddy. So hopefully those two gentlemen will find some great work elsewhere. All of the commercial themes that were in the Themebeans catalog are now available for free on GitHub. Current customers will continue to receive theme support and remote updates until April 8th, 2020. Now, according to Aaron Campbell, GoDaddy's head of WordPress ecosystem and community, CoBlocks will continue to be freely available on WordPress.org. It currently has more than 3,000 active installs with an average of 4.7 star rating out of 5. So it's a bit of a par for the course there. It says GoDaddy's resources will enable CoBlocks, Themebeans, and Block Gallery to move faster and add features that were previously out of reach for Tabor's small team. Tabor says that, quote, we'll go from just 2 developers to a team of incredibly bright engineers, and I won't be spending time figuring out all the intricacies of monetizing a premium plugin in today's ever-changing WordPress ecosystem. Instead, I could focus on leading the team's efforts on bringing a better page building experience to WordPress, end quote.
I like Aaron's his quote regarding the roadmap for any of what's getting pulled into to the GoDaddy family, saying that hiring React devs that are capable of Gutenberg is a newer thing that we're not totally sure whether it'll be difficult or not, or even how it'll look. Aaron went on to say, do you hire WordPress people, React people, only those that do both? Do you hire both and pair them up to learn from each other? It's a thing we're learning in this new post-Gutenberg world. It sounds or reminds me a lot of WP Engine and Atomic Blocks and bringing in the Genesis folks and everything else.
It kind of goes back to, there's WordPress developers and there's PHP developers. And you would think that a WordPress developer would be a PHP developer and vice versa. But we found out over the years, especially, 5 to 7 years ago, that they're actually different.
Mm-hmm.
There's the WordPress person who does things the WordPress way with the WordPress PHP way, and then there's
Mm-hmm.
your just general common PHP developer.
Well, we're seeing the divide. I mean, it's been there for a while now, but I think everyone that has been paying attention or not to WordPress core development should start to, or should be seeing that divide getting bigger or more noticeable. Like it really is, and I think 5.2. I think this WordPress release is the one that, I mean, solidifies that for me, that there are front end developers working on Gutenberg, and there are back end developers working on featured uh, things like the white screen of depth protection and things like that. Like uh, they are things that require both design and front end development and back end development, but there is a lot of trust that it needs to exist between the folks that are working on very intricate and detailed and complex interfaces uh, for users, and those that are working and building interfaces for developers. They are two separate minds that are working on two very separate parts of the code base now. So this is the release that solidifies that, I think, for me.
And it seems like it's a bit of a response to WP Engine's acquisition of Studio Press and some of the block Gutenberg type products and block things that they've acquired.
I agree.
So I guess if you're in the Gutenberg theme block space, start creating themes and blocks and stuff, and hope a WordPress host or host in general buys you up. I don't know.
Yeah.
The host right now in the WordPress ecosystem, the host have the most money to spend on everybody else to acquire everybody else.
Yep. The best way to make money is to get a job is to do the job. So if what you want is a job somewhere building cool blocks, start building blocks and make something that is extraordinary. And someone will likely want to acquire your talent and abilities and everything else. I agree.
So congratulations, Rich, for founding your company. And I mean, it was one of the original, when I say original, one of the original sort of independent theme shops that's been around for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's been acquired. And the list goes down even further to the people, to the independent companies that haven't been acquired yet. Which, by the way, Theme Hybrid is still on that list by Justin Tallock. And he just recently released a new theme called Exhale, which looks awesome. And he's been doing a lot of new things lately with this new framework. So definitely check that out, Theme Hybrid. He does great work, and he's a great asset to the WordPress community. So other than that,
one thing I wanted the RFC document from the widget block interfaces was on our list, or no?
I was thinking about talking about it. I figured maybe we'd wait till next week, but if you want, we could talk about it. If you want,
might as well. I mentioned it and totally ruined your plan, so why don't we just talk about it?
All right, you start.
All right. So the Gutenberg team has published a request for comments, specifically regarding widget block interfaces. And so ultimately what they are looking for is feedback to talk about the technical details and implementation of bringing blocks into widgets and the customizer. And so since widgets has its own screen in WordPress admin and also is part of the customizer, the idea here is to try and figure out how to get blocks pretty seamlessly integrated into both. And so this is one of the goals that Matt had outlined in his 9 projects for 2019. And so folks are asking for feedback, and there is a lot of comments on that GitHub RFC. And healthy, good discussion. Frankly, lots of people going back and forth and really scrutinizing the decisions and some of the code and some of the kind of hypothetical ways that these things could or should work. And so that is GitHub thread, I believe now. Let me see if there's an issue. No, it's
Let's have
just
a classic widgets editor. Have a
I mean,
classic widgets plugin.
that's what it's going to look like eventually. There will be a classic widgets screen. There's a classic media screen. If you still go hunting around WordPress admin, there are still files that you can hit that'll show you the old media library. So this is no different than that. Eventually, it'll happen. We'll get there. But
so some of the things that's in the document that I wanted to highlight that they're aiming for is that editing blocks in WP admin, widgets.php, and WP admin customize.php should use the same block editor that you use to edit new posts. The block editor should read and update blocks and widget editing areas via the REST API. Upgrading WordPress must not affect the appearance of the user's site or any of their existing widgets. Existing core and third-party widgets must remain functional in the new block-based interface. Backwards compatibility must be maintained. That is, themes and plugins that use public widget APIs must remain functional. And during a transition period, it should be possible to disable the block-based interface and return to the classic widget editing interface.
And then there's just so many things that like they are having
a million
to
other
define.
things to consider.
Right, widgets, multiple widgets, widget areas, dynamic sidebars. Like there are all of these things. Jetpack has what are the contextual aware ones. Like there are lots of things to consider for how people have used widgets and extended them throughout the history of widgets being used. And so,
which on paper, I thought it'd just be simple. Where you just turn all widgets into blocks, and bada bing, bada boom. But apparently, it's not going to be that simple.
Unfortunately, not. I mean, they really the divide between getting your JavaScript to talk to PHP and getting your PHP to talk to JavaScript when one is a server side thing and one is a client side thing. I mean, there really are two very purposefully different approaches to getting things done and solving these problems. And so, I
mean, in the grand scheme of things, widgets are, I believe, will be replaced by blocks. And there's also that weird thing right now where if you can add a widget block.
You can add a widget block.
Gutenberg, which is we're kind of still we're in the beginning of that gray area, that transition area where hopefully I want to see the day where widgets can be retired, that word can be retired, and now it's just all blocks.
Well, and so that's one of the things that has come up in the RFC, and one of the challenges that the Gutenberg team has that is not always easy to keep on the front of your mind is that Gutenberg is intended to be an editor for the masses. So words like widget don't matter to Drupal users. They don't matter to people that aren't WordPress users, that don't already understand what the context of a widget really is. So their unique challenge is how do they rebuild this and repurpose kind of these reusable widget things in a way that is both actually useful for WordPress, but also not too WordPress specific, where other people that aren't WordPress don't get confused by adding in all these new things. So they have their work cut out for them. And so the RFC is an important part of this process. And it is kind of like we were talking about with WooCommerce. Like this is the time to chime in with your feedback and approaches and kind of scrutinizing the ideas here, because eventually this year, people are going to start working on solving these problems. And so this is the time to be a part of that discussion. It is not when it is in beta or release candidate to go, oh, I don't like this. This isn't what I wanted. This isn't what I expected. Like now is the time to get involved so that you can help shape it into being what you think it is supposed to be. And so the sooner I think we can talk about it on the show, even today, is probably the better.
So I was trying to figure out when widget support was added to WordPress, and I can't actually find it, but I know it was back in the day, long time ago.
1.0 something I could probably, you know what? I mean, if you can kill the dead air for a little while, I can find it.
Let's see. I mean, I'm looking at the WordPress wiki page on Wikipedia, which, I'd imagine it would be there. So 2.2 back in May 16, 2007 added
2.2.
widget support for templates.
Mm-hmm.
Added Atom feed
2.20.
support and speed optimization. So maybe 2.2?
Yep. 2.2 would be
2007. So we're looking at Gutenberg and blocks and changing 12 years worth of how things have been done.
Yeah.
Which,
and a lot of the
Gutenberg was trying to change, so many years of how things have been done in the post editor.
Yeah.
That was step one. Now step two is widgets.
And if you look at widgets.php, it's continued to get new functions that have gone in almost every release. 2.8, 3.3, there the 4.9, there has been a continuous iteration on widgets to keep up with the way that everything else works. So,
and if you look at the widget management screen in the back end of WordPress, it kind of harkens back to the days of 2.7, 2.8, when the admin things were redesigned, and there was a lot of this emphasis on dragging boxes all over the place. And if you look at the widget interface today, there's a lot of still of dragging things to sidebars that have names that you have to know what the name of that sidebar is and how it corresponds to where it's located on your site. There's a sharp disconnect there that I think Gutenberg and being able to merge the front end and back ends together would help solve, and having blocks there. But that's one of the areas I do not like to be in today, is the widgets management page in the back end, because there's just so much clicking and dragging and moving things around. It's just, and then when you have like 20 to 25 widgets or plugins that add their widgets, it just becomes it's a mess.
the widgets UI is like the world's worst block-based editor, because they are still
that's one way to look at it.
They are blocks that you can drag and drop. You can move them up and down. Each block has each widget has its own properties and components and attributes, a title, radio buttons, image uploads. Like, widgets are just HTML blobs like a block is, and with a different little bit of Chrome, different UI. Widgets are like the precursor to blocks. They really are.
Well, I can't wait to see how this part of the ship of Theseus is rebuilt.
This is like replacing the whole outer front hull
like the
area.
hull.
Yeah, this is a big chunk to bite off at once, and so breaking it apart and working on the pieces. But now is the time to get involved into it.
Death to the widget and death to the sidebar and death to all these convoluted things that we've gotten used to over the years. I'm ready for something new and fresh and something that makes sense.
Jeff, you know what we're going to be talking about in 2025?
Drupal?
Sidebars. We're going to talk about bringing sidebars back. Sidebars are going to be cool again in 2025. Like, remember when websites had sidebars?
No. Based on a presentation I saw by Morton, we're going to be living in a VR augmented reality world where there are no sidebars. There's just things that you move around with your hands, and it looks like you're conducting an orchestra.
Yeah, some people will be living in that world. We will not be, though. We are going to be clicking around the web the same as we always do, building what we build. Some people might be living in that augmented world, but I don't know.
You think we're still going to be in a point and click based world?
Yeah, libraries are still around. You still read books, right? I mean, the web as it is not going anywhere. This is what it's going to be for.
What's a book?
Yeah, well, you know
how
to read. I know you know how to read. I watch you read every week.
I mean, why read a book when you can just watch Reading Rainbow?
That's true. That's true. Reading Rainbow is amazing.
Had a great theme song. So before we wrap it up here, I wanted to send a shout out to Katie Bowman, who started 3 years ago, but she is credited with creating the algorithm that has turned telescopic data into the first image of a black hole, which has made huge news today.
Yeah.
And while you can't technically see a black hole, what they did is they actually did this awesome coordination, this collaboration, and they actually kind of used the planet Earth as a telescope. And they aimed all the telescopes, both in space and the radio telescopes on the planet, towards this one black hole. And the data that we're now getting back is allowing us to see the shadow of the black hole. And the energy just before it gets wrapped into the black hole, you can see that there's a lot of X-rays that come out of that energy, and that's what allows you to see the area around the black hole. So, anyways, shout out to Katie. It's there's the collaboration and everything that was involved here. The scientists all around the world working together, I think, is one of those cool, rare cases where we really get to see what we as a human species can accomplish when we all work together towards the same goal. I wish we could apply that same type of energy to so many other aspects of what we do here on this planet, but also a huge milestone in the fact that this is a great accomplishment for women in STEM, that Katie, now this becomes an excellent role model for other women out there in science and technology.
It's awesome. It was super cool. Like, I read the deep kind of the all of the things about it, like you probably read too. And it is kind of crazy the amount of teamwork and preparation that had to have gone into this. Years and years and years of work all come down to one photograph of was M87, right? Is that what it was? The center of the whole thing. I mean, it's really cool. It's also, I think, funny because all of this work goes into like what ultimately is like not that impressive of a photo. Like, I mean, the photo's amazing. The work that went into it is amazing. But when you see all these like super hyper renders of what people interpret black holes to be and planets and things, and everything just looks so incredible. And then you look at the real results of it, it just looks like
and not to mention what we're seeing is 55 million years old.
That's also true, right?
Because of the distance of where those X-rays, where that light's coming from. It takes 55 million years to get here for us to be able to see what's going on out there.
So it was a very
for all we know, that hole's not even there anymore. Who knows?
Right. It was like a very humbling reminder of how much work needs to go into taking, I mean, big steps, but also little steps. Like
So Jeff Galinsky on Twitter, he asked me a question. He says, "What happens if you search for black hole in the plugin repository when Jetpack is installed?" And I told him, I don't know. I'm afraid to do that. But I might do that after the show. And if I rip a hole in the space-time continuum, it's not my fault. So outside of that, that's really all I have for WordPress news this week. I will say that I finally was able to. It was time to upgrade my phone. I've spent so many years now with Apple that it's hard to. I was really thinking about going Android this time around, but I got so much invested in Apple that I just don't want to deal with the inconvenience of switching to Android and finding the apps that I have on the phone and blah blah blah. So I ended up going with the iPhone XR, and this is my first foray into an iPhone that does not have the home button anymore. It's all kind of haptic feedback with gestures, and it's weird. I keep tapping the home button. There's no home button there, but it works like there is a home button there.
Yeah. But
the screen is here. The battery is nice. The camera is nice, even though there's not that big of a difference from what I had on the iPhone 7. So far, I like the device. Cool. After you use a phone for a while, a refurbished phone, because I broke the screen on the last one, where people can't hear you because you sound muffled. I mean, the whole purpose of having a phone used to be to talk to people. I don't know if that's the purpose anymore, but maybe now it's to distract you from people. But the battery life, I was starting to get to the point where the battery was crapping out on me, where I couldn't get it past 70%. I'd watch a video and it'd go down to 45%. So that's how you know that the battery's going down. And it's just nice to have a phone. And for at least one day, I was able to answer the phone and say, "New phone, who dis?" And it was true. I actually had a new phone. But
I'm happy that you got a new phone. Your old phone is pretty old.
Yeah, it was an iPhone 7. My wife had an iPhone 6 Plus, and for the first time now in all these years, because we used to alternate in upgrades, we now have the same phone at the same time.
Good. Oh,
so
that's good. That's cute.
Yeah, there we go.
The on the list of upgrades, this podcast now is coming to you live over the air from internet at our brand spanking new house. That's 2 miles from everywhere. And so, the snow hopefully isn't hurting my connection too much, but
no, you've been fine this entire show.
Good. Because we are shortwave radioing a high-speed internet from 1.5 miles away over the air to a dish on top of our house. And then
giving free high-speed internet to your neighbors. See, I want to be your neighbor.
It's going to be kind of neat when the neighborhood is lit up with internet. I think the dish on top of our house has scared some people. Like, they think that they need a big dish like we have. It's not even that big. It's only about 1.5 feet, I think, in diameter, but maybe 20 inches or so. But everyone thought they needed some big dumb dish, but everyone just gets a tiny little radio. But it'll be it's working well so far, and I've learned a lot of weird networking things that I didn't think that I would ever need to know. And we have a bunch of rack-mounted gear in the basement that I never thought that I'd need to own. And then because we built a new house and we are just outside of the village limits, then this coming Monday will be my last board meeting in the village of East Troy. Instead, we live in the town of East Troy. And so we had our April elections, and I will have my final board meeting of my 2-year term coming up this next Monday. So it'll be a sad week next week a little bit.
I've set up a GoFundMe for you.
Oh, why? Don't do that.
Because you're going to need it to pay legal fees for when the neighborhood does a class action lawsuit on you for causing your satellite's going to be causing everybody to be getting cancer.
Wow, that is something that
it's not too far off. Come on,
I didn't think that you would be my legal representation, but it sounds to me like you just volunteered to handle this case for me. So I appreciate you.
Oh, no problem. No problem. I got a lot of experience in it, and if I don't win the case, you don't pay a dime.
Gee, thanks. Great.
All right, so that's going to do it for this episode of WordPress Weekly. You can find show notes for this episode and all other episodes on wbtavern.com, and you can follow me on Twitter at Jeffro JEFFR0 and John
jjj.blog and GitHub at jjj.
All right, so we'll catch you on the flip side. Everybody enjoy the rest of your week. We'll talk to you again next Wednesday afternoon for even more awesome WordPress goodness. Say bye, John. Bye, everybody.
Bye, John. Bye, everybody.